we have everybody that needs to be here already here. If we crack on, we've got a busy evening tonight. Crack on with item number 1 regarding some housekeeping. The fire drill. We're not expecting a fire drill today, but if the alarm does sound off, please make your way out of the building calmly and quickly, and make your way out of the building and gather around Lloyd's Bank opposite the town hall building. If you need any assistance, then please let someone know. And also regarding mobile phones, if you can have them switched off or on silent, would appreciate it. Thank you. Apologies. We have 2 apologies. Councillor Jenkins has apologised for not being able to attend, but we have Councillor Bill Hancock subbing for him. Councillor W. Markham, she's also apologised, but we have Councillor Brown subbing. Thank you for that very much. We have Jack Bonner on his way, like myself. He's stuck in traffic as well, which is a bit of a nightmare at the moment. We have minutes from the last meeting, all on page 7 on tonight's. Could everybody have a look at those? And could I have somebody to propose and second for me? Propose somebody to second? Who else who will second? Is everybody happy with those? Everybody in agreement?
I've not really got a dispute as to the actual minutes, but the thing about emergency cover, I'd like to know sort of what actions is actually happening, because we did resolve that we would get more training and what have you, and there's been nothing sort of come out since then, so just like to get some progress on that.
We haven't seen anything come through from the officers. We can, yeah, we'll get that chased up if that's okay. Yeah, thank you. Anything else? Anybody needs to raise? No. Is everybody happy to approve? Could we have some show of hands? Thank you. Declarations of interest. Members to declare any interest not included in the schedule, all on the website. Links are on the agenda. Anybody got anything outside to put forward tonight that's not already been declared? Nobody? Okay, we'll move on then. Right, we have any public speakers? I've got nothing. No public speakers tonight. Okay, lovely, thank you. Questions to the Cabinet. Do you have any questions for the Cabinet at all? No questions for the Cabinet. Thank you very much for attending. Okay, we have a presentation tonight from the air quality, so I will put that through to yourselves. Here we go.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies from Kate. Unfortunately, she's not very well today, so I've stepped in. We're on item agenda number 7 on page 11. We've brought a number of presentations, 2 from partners at the county, and then 1 from ourselves and Rachel presenting. So I think Tanya is online, so I think we're going to swap over. I think what we then need to do is make sure that we can hear her, and I'll turn my mic off and I'll turn the screen on.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes. Shall I present my screen? Would that be all right?
Have you got your presentation to put on the screen, or would you like me to do it?
I can do it. I've got us all, I think.
That's okay.
That work?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, can you all see that okay?
We've got that, thank you, yes.
Great. So good evening, everybody. My name is Tanya Kerr-Butler. I'm the Public Health Service Manager at Warwickshire County Council. And today I'll be providing a bit of an overview of the relationship between air quality and health, and what that means then for our communities, our services, and our shared responsibilities. So this is just a brief overview slide of the impacts of outdoor air quality on health. So we know that air quality and air pollution comes from a mixture of different sources. So predominantly vehicles, as you know, but also industry, construction and agriculture. So the types of pollutants that you might be familiar with, and the most popular ones that you might have come across, are things like nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter, 2.5 and 10, and then others such as sulfur dioxide and ammonia. And we know those impact health in several very important ways. So, for example, it can worsen respiratory conditions like asthma, COPD, bronchitis. Long-term exposure, we know, can increase the risk of heart attacks, stroke, and hypertension. And in children, pollution can lead to impaired lung development, and so that can lead to lifelong consequences as well. So at a population level, long-term exposure we know contributes to high mortality, particularly from the heart and lung disease, and there's increasing evidence that there's links to cancers as well. And those harms from air pollution are mostly seen, we know, particularly in vulnerable groups, and I'll come on to talk about that a little bit later. And so the severity of these health impacts can depend on lots of different factors, including how long an individual is exposed for, the concentration of exposure, their susceptibility to it. And so we'll explore that as we go. So this infographic here just shows you the impacts of indoor air quality, often overlooked. We normally focus on the sort of impacts of outdoor air quality, but it's important to sort of note that the sources of indoor air quality, so things like mold, combustion products, so from wood burning, etc., cleaning and cleaning chemicals, exposure to those can lead to lots of different health impacts. For example, respiratory conditions like asthma and allergies can obviously be exacerbated. Then cardiovascular problems from pollutants, particularly those particulate matters. And there are now links shown with cognitive impacts, particularly from things like carbon monoxide, and links to cancer as well. So, and sort of immediate exposure can cause irritation, of course, to eyes and skin. So the kind of key public health measures that we would recommend is making sure that people, simple things like improve their ventilation, burn good fuels if they have to burn fuel, wood without moisture or with less moisture, for example, making sure that we're just reducing the exposure to indoor pollutants. So I'll just flash up this infographic because it nicely demonstrates the impact across the life course and how that can change and look different. So particularly for pregnant women and those, the early development of the fetus can be impacted now, we know, by air pollution. And then that can go all the way through to children. And I talked about impaired lung function already. Back onto pregnancy as well as low birth weight. It can also, there are now links with premature birth as well, so low birth weight and prematurity. So then childhood lung development and exacerbation of things like asthma, etc. And then going on to adulthood, as we age, our lung function decreases naturally anyway, but that can be accelerated then by living near more polluted roads. So this is just a quick chart to show you the relationship then from life expectancy and pollution. So from the least deprived to the most deprived, looking at men and women, and you can see that reduction in life expectancy to the most deprived and most polluted areas. Would have noticed then I talked about deprivation because often they are linked, pollution and deprivation. So that is a relationship, not necessarily causation, but that is what we can observe. This chart here is similar in the same set of infographics, and it just again shows that relationship between air quality and inequalities. So people living in the most deprived communities are significantly more likely to be exposed to the highest levels of air pollution, whilst those living in the least deprived areas are more likely to benefit from cleaner air. And that very much sort of shows us a consistent social gradient where exposure increases with deprivation. And that for us from a public health perspective really does reinforce those existing health inequalities which we already are very familiar with. So I've shown you a couple of national charts. This is a local chart. So this is Nuneaton and Bedworth data compared to Warwickshire overall data. And this is primary care records. So if an individual has a primary care record with the diagnosis of one of these conditions, that's what we're seeing here. So it's the prevalence of these in the population of Nuneaton, the blue bar, and then Warwickshire in the orange bar. And what you can see overall is that actually the conditions are very similar across Warwickshire and Nuneaton and Bedworth. The differences are diabetes here, you can see, and then slightly higher prevalence in Nuneaton and Bedworth, and a slightly higher one for respiratory conditions, COPD. So what we can say then, for these conditions in particular, although we can't say they're caused by poor air quality, what we can say is they are, we know, exacerbated by or have links to air pollution, poor air quality. So we can say from our population that these individuals are most vulnerable to poor air quality. So I've talked to you about the data and the relationship between health and air quality. It only sort of follows then from a public health perspective that we talk about the benefits of active travel. So what are the things we can do as a population to reduce our the burden of poor air quality or reduce poor air quality? We can do that by active travel. So by fewer cars on the road, it makes, of course, complete sense that that would improve air quality, that would cause less congestion, lower carbon emissions, and reduce noise pollution. And so with that improved air quality, we also get lots of other benefits that public health are interested in, for example, community, social and economic benefits, but also, of course, the improvement in health and well-being. So the fact that we're increasing everyone's ability to be physically active within their day, support healthy weight through regular movement, boost mental health and well-being, and hopefully lower the risk then, known link, evidence-based link, with reducing the risk of long-term health conditions. So again, a local chart. This is a chart showing you the black line is England, and the blue line here at the bottom is Nuneaton and Bedworth. And if you just read the chart title, so it's the percentage of physically active adults in Nuneaton and Bedworth. So what we can see is that is lower than England. So overall, particularly in the red points over time, this is over time, the red points show you that the levels of physical activity is lower in Nuneaton and Bedworth compared to the national average. So this would highlight that, you know, as a kind of system, we need to think about how we can create environments where walking and cycling and active lifestyles are embedded in everyone's lives, and they are an easy choice to make so that we can improve those physical activity levels. Similarly, this is a couple of charts to show you the prevalence of obesity in Nuneaton Bedworth compared to Warwickshire and England. So Nuneaton Bedworth is the pink line throughout the whole of the two charts, and then Warwickshire is the black line, and England is the orange line. So I think the key thing to note is over time, Nuneaton and Bedworth have higher prevalence of obesity compared to the national and I guess the county averages. So again, we know that obesity remains a challenge locally. We'd like to reinforce the importance of linking air quality then with active travel and that wider sort of issue around healthy weight. So by designing places that would encourage movement, we can have that sort of win-win of where we're reducing pollution and support healthier behaviours across the population. So finally then, for public health, so what are we doing in this space? So this is some efforts from the county, I guess, to support. So recently we've produced an air quality literacy training for elected members and officers, and we've done that in collaboration with the district and borough environmental health teams. So that is aimed to sort of raise awareness of the issues, raise awareness of sort of core components of what poor air quality looks like, key terminology, etc., but also look at the local impacts and the practical things that we can do. The Director of Public Health has to provide oversight over the annual air quality status reports that are submitted to DEFRA, so we do that annually. And then our health in all policies work embeds health considerations into planning, things like including active travel and access to green space are things that we would advocate for. And that goes hand in hand then with the whole systems approach to healthy weight, which is again an initiative to bring partners together to tackle inactivity and obesity. And then finally, a bit of work around road safety with Public Health sit on the Road Safety Partnership. And the idea is to support safer, more active and sustainable travel. So together, these actions are to help raise awareness of the issues, reduce exposure and improve health outcomes to support long-term behaviour change. Thank you. I'll pass on to my colleague. I don't know if we're taking questions now or at the end.
Thank you. So, who was taking over now? Okay, that's fine. Okay, so questions now. Lovely, thank you. Right, if you carry on then, Dan, we'll let you have your presentation as well. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we've got you.
Lovely. Like Tanya, I'm happy to share my screen if that helps the chamber.
Yes, please.
Okay, bear with. Okay.
We've got that, thank you.
Lovely, thank you for confirming that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dan Morris. I work in the transport planning team at the County Council. Apologies for not making it there in person this evening. Childcare reasons have kept me at home this evening, but glad to be here. Glad to be talking through the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. I've provided a presentation here on the assumption that not everyone knows all the details around it. So I'll walk through the presentation that I have, picking a few details out of the document. And if anyone has any questions at the end, then obviously very happy to take them. So what is Warwickshire's local cycling and walking infrastructure plan? It is our long-term county-wide plan designed to improve infrastructure for walking, wheeling and cycling. It's walking, it's wheeling and it's cycling. So wheeling can encompass many things. It can, when you think of it, encompass children scooting to school. I really want to underline the importance of wheeling and mobility scooters and non-standard bicycles, if you like. So people that use tricycles or anything like that. So when we say wheeling, it's a little bit more than kids scooting to school. And that's really important to address that at this point, because as we move through the presentation and as you think about active travel, it's not just about people jumping on bicycles and cycling around. The infrastructure we're providing through our network plans is designed to improve the walking journeys of all, the mobility journeys and requirements, as well as cycling. The aim is to make active travel the natural choice for short everyday journeys and for leisure purposes. So this document, I encourage you all to have a look if you haven't. It's pretty big, but you can leaf through to relevant sections for Nuneaton and Bedworth. It was approved by Warwickshire County Council back in February 2024. The plan aligns closely with national guidance. It includes the government's cycling and walking investment strategy and the gear change vision, all documents which support Active Travel England's standards for safe and high quality cycling and walking routes. Warwickshire needs this type of document and this type of plan because it's increasingly important to provide networks to encourage short local trips to the shops, trips to libraries, trips to school. 2/3 of personal trips nationally are typically within 5 miles of, which are considered very achievable for cycling and walking. I think it's important to stress that we recognise that active travel isn't for everyone. There are essential users of other modes out there, and that is absolutely fine. What Warwickshire are striving to achieve is a balance on our transport system and the offer. We're quite limited in certain parts of the county with the transport choices that we have, and we would like to make sure that people walking, wheeling and cycling are catered for over the next 10 years. And so we're quite keen to demonstrate that the LC WIP, as we call it, the Local Cycling and Walking Infrastructure Plan, provides huge potential for public health, because obviously active travel supports healthy lifestyles. It's hugely important for reducing carbon emissions for obvious reasons. We'd like to provide better infrastructure to encourage people to choose active travel over a private vehicle, because we know transport is a major contributor to emissions, and shifting those short trips to active modes supports Warwickshire's net zero ambitions. Walking, wheeling and cycling is essential for growing communities. Our urban areas across the county continue to expand, and we really do need improved sustainable transport links for school journeys, for work purposes, and simply to go and meet neighbours or for leisure purposes. So the key aims of the local cycling and walking infrastructure is to create that network of safe and attractive routes for walking, wheeling and cycling, so they become the natural choices for shorter journeys, so that it becomes obvious and accessible for all. Now, to achieve this, the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan prioritises high quality, inclusive, safe infrastructure, and it supports the council plan's priorities for thriving economies, sustainable futures and healthier communities. The document, the LC WIP document, is a report, if you like. It's a plan for the 10 years ahead, and it's broken down into 3 sections. Part 1 is the introduction. It provides all the background to this plan, the national local context, the methodology used to create it, and the scope of the infrastructure plan. Part 2, which is where most of you might have a particular interest, you can dip into the Nuneaton and Bedworth area. It obviously covers the 5 geographically specific plans, and it identifies proposed walking and wheeling and cycling networks. It's a plan where, for example, if Warwickshire were awarded a huge amount of funding tomorrow, that's where we'd spend it. It's quite easy to look at our town centres and the corridors leading into it, and the plans within this document will show you where we would like to spend our funding, and I'll explain that a little bit further in the next couple of slides. It prioritises corridors that serve town centres, just as well as other important trip attractors. And finally, Part 3, implementation. That's the slow process. That's where we need engagement. That's where it goes through design and consultation. But this section of the document basically will show you a prioritised list of over 300 schemes across the county, which are ripe for the taking. You know, if we did have money, this is where we'd like to spend it. I'll visually show you those in the coming slides. But the document also includes the strategic evidence we need to support future funding applications for this. Appreciate some of the content I'm putting on the screen in front of you may not be easy to see. The slides are obviously made available to you, but what I've included here is some of the challenges and opportunities of the LC WIP, the document itself. And essentially, you know, delivering cycling and walking infrastructure on a county-wide level requires addressing a wide range of strategic, environmental, financial and social challenges. There are many challenges within delivering active travel, and the points on this slide are, you know, outline some of those challenges, and it's expanded on in more detail within the document itself. Following on from Tanya's discussion just now, I've just brought up and put in bold the importance of the LC WIP and climate change and air quality. I think Tanya highlighted quite clearly the obvious links between air quality, public health, and, you know, modal shift to active modes. But the LC WIP is a really important document that allows us to secure funding so that we can make those climate change improvements. So this is the slide you won't be able to see very clearly, but it's just a visual example of the network plans that are within the LCWIP document. It is a web, a cobweb, if you like, a maze of routes that have been prioritized, basically delivering safer routes that remove barriers to walking, cycling and wheeling. We know that by delivering these, we can reduce the congestion through that area, resulting in cleaner air in the towns or along those corridors. It brings the economic benefits. And essentially what these routes are, they're coloured. And you may not see this terribly clear on the screen or within your slides, but there's a lot of orange routes across our boroughs and districts, and they're our potential routes, where if we could secure funding, we would move things along and prioritise them on these routes. There are some purple routes within these plans, and for example in Nuneaton we've got a long corridor along the A47 split into the Long Shoot and Hinckley Road, and we've got the Weddington Road scheme, two schemes that have got funding, and we'd like to push forward with those in the very near future, and make more of the routes across Nuneaton purple by securing the funding and going through the consultation process. So while the LCWIP sets out detailed and ambitious proposals, the County Council, as well as the district and boroughs, recognise that delivery depends on securing the funding, but also stakeholder support. The plan, however, positions the county strongly for future investment, as well as strengthening partnership opportunities. We are on very good terms with Active Travel England. We have secured good funding through them, and we'd like to see that funding go into Nuneaton and Bedworth, as well as the other districts and boroughs, to help support that modal shift that's needed for air quality and all the benefits that come with creating active travel networks. A reminder that the LCWIP document will guide infrastructure improvements over the next 10 years and beyond, but the plans you can see on the screen here, they are indicative alignments. As developments come forward and as increased transport pressures come about as response to local growth, those alignments may need to change or be added to support the obvious desire lines that people want to travel. I hope that's been useful. That's kind of the end of my LCWIP presentation in information. And hopefully on the back of your packs, you'll have our contact details if you have questions, and obviously we can answer them today, but please do get in touch if you have any specific problems or questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Really appreciate that. So do we have any questions for Dan and Alison? Anybody? Right, Chris.
Thank you, Chair. My questions to Alison, was it? The first. Tanya. Sorry. I just want to expand on the air quality versus deprivation observations about health and life expectancy. So you said there's a correlation, but it's not necessarily a causative effect. Are we actually making any more studies as to whether that health and life expectancy actually correlates or is actually caused by deprivation or poor quality air? Is there a way we can tell?
Thanks for your question. I think yes, there's lots of work ongoing in this sort of area. It's sort of new and emerging, I think, and I think that the kind of crux of it is it's hard to measure the impact that air quality can have as a direct causation. But what we can say is in those areas of more deprivation, what you're likely to see is they are in more urban areas. So urban areas more likely to be deprived and therefore tend to be more built up, and therefore built up areas are where we're seeing the air pollution. So do you see what I mean? So they're all kind of related to each other, and it's always multifactorial. So you've got poor air quality, but you've also got poor lifestyles, potentially poor diet, they're all sort of together in terms of how do we create a healthier lifestyle. Well, we need to reduce air pollution, but we also need to create more healthy outlets for food, for food, not sort of just takeaways. And we need to sort of create environments of more green spaces, more sort of open space, more trees. So it's all sort of related and it's sort of connected to each other. And so I guess the answer is there's lots of evidence to sort of come, and it's new and emerging, but also it's multifactorial and it's difficult to unpick, I think is the point.
I'm just thinking of examples from like Stratford, for example. I mean, I know Stratford's road network is as big a disaster zone as Nuneaton, I think. Certainly, I've always been stuck in Stratford when I'm going through Stratford. But I imagine they're a bit more affluent than Nuneaton. So, yeah, have we got the comparisons in life expectancy between Stratford and Nuneaton? Would they be comparable in terms of air pollution and other factors that we can control out?
Thank you. Again, this is all the study that I presented to you today was a national piece of work. So I think, yes, we could look at it. I think we know that life expectancy in Stratford is higher than it is in Nuneaton and Bedworth. That is clear. Again, it would be a study around correlation rather than causation, but we could definitely look to unpick that data a bit further.
Would you be happy for that data to come through for us going forward, Tanya? Could you forward that data to the members?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Questions, then I appreciate it. Yeah, but a little deep dive would be great.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Bill first. I think Bill had his hand up. Bill, if you want to go ahead. Your question. You had a question. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Can I just start by thanking Tanya and Dan for their presentation. I actually don't think there's probably a lot of difference between what we're thinking as members and what the officers are thinking as well. One of the things I've got is I've been around quite a long time now, and we actually don't seem to move much further on in respect of the health and well-being of the people in Nuneaton and Bedworth compared to other areas of the county, and indeed if you want to compare it to nationally. In particularly with the clean air stuff. Many years ago I used to chair what was then called the National Society for Clean Air, and it was a movement that started I think in the 1890s to try and get rid of all the coal smoke and smog and stuff, and it was very successful. And we had obvious links here, and one of the biggest problems we had in the borough was with the gyratory in Nuneaton, but that's no doubt improved with the new technology with vehicles. That's improved, and it's now been I believe it's now been removed from that one as a site that we have to monitor. But it does concern me, and obviously because of the extra vehicles we've got on the road over the years now, in particular in Bedworth, we've got a particular problem along the Newtown Road from the Treble 4 up to what we call locally Malfunction Junction, the traffic light bits by Tesco. And you know, sometimes it queues all the way down there from those sites that I've just said to, and so I'm not sure whether that's monitored at all, but it should be. But many years ago as well, we had there were plans to create a triangle at the slip roads at the Treble 4 and Newtown Road, which would have been able to take traffic from that end and divert them around Bedworth to go back up onto the Treble 4. But it never happened, so anybody wanting to get to the Nuneaton area from that end has to go up and through the town or through Mount Pleasant. I'm also interested in I know the officer was saying, you know, if they had all the money, they'd like to do lots of things. Well, that's always the case. But something I believe that the county is falling down on, and maybe it's a budgetary thing. Maybe I'll be told that, I don't know. But we've got very poor provision of on-street charging points. You know, the more that we try to encourage people to have electric cars and vehicles, there's not the support on-street parking to charge people. And I'd really like to do that. You know, you've only got to go across the border into Coventry, and they've got really good provision over there. At the same time, Chair, a big improvement's been local bus services, because we've largely got electric buses now that are very good. It'd be great if they could run a bit more often after 6 o'clock at night, and that would save some people having to get the bus. I'm a regular bus user, and the new electric buses, I think, are brilliant. And when you think of how much muck they used to chuck out before. But the problem, and the previous councillor touched on it, is about how it impacts on areas of deprivation. You know, we don't need to tell people to suck eggs round about this, and particularly my ward in Bede is classed as an area of deprivation. And, you know, it's how we get amongst those people and encourage them to do other stuff. Because it's not just about the air quality in the streets, it was mentioned about inside the houses. And there's lots of problems as well with things like damp and mould and things like that in houses that have a serious impact on people's health. So any plans and improvements should really be directed towards where the need is. There used to be a saying at the county council about narrowing the gap. Unfortunately, there's no evidence of that happening over the years. We've still got the more affluent south of the county that live longer, have a better quality of life than us in the north of the county. So not much has changed. And then just finally, Chair, I just wanted to touch on the physical inactivity. It's a really difficult one because we've tried over the years to get more people involved, particularly, like I say, in wards like my own, but obviously other wards as well. And we have been proactive in Nuneaton and Bedworth with having leisure centres and provision like that. And I think we've got a great opportunity at the moment with the due to come on newly activity hub in Bedworth. We really need some ambassadors or somebody to promote it in our poorer areas to be able to get up to those activity hubs, the Pingles, all these places, and use the facilities, because unfortunately it does tend to be the people that are more aware and more affluent that use those. The statistics will tell you that. It seems very difficult to be able to get into our poorer areas and somehow, even I don't know how you do it, but even if you could get some transport for them or whatever to get up to these places, we need to start looking at how we can improve the health and well-being of all the people in our borough. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I waffled on.
Thank you, Bill. I think you made some great points. Is there any way we can do like a targeted focus group for our area here that you can sort of, so we're not looking at Warwickshire as a whole, but we're looking at Nuneaton and Bedworth, so we know our problems locally. Do you have that kind of set up already, or you don't? Is this something that you would consider if you don't have it set up? So you could target, so you can have a look at more local issues that we've got here regarding air quality and take them back and then look at it as a whole under the county umbrella. Tanya, do you have anything like that set up?
There are place partnerships. So the North will have a place partnership, which is a health and wellbeing partnership. It's system So partners from across the system will join that. The ICB, Public Health, County Council and District and Borough will belong to that. So they are place specific, and there's a lot of work that goes on that is targeted, which my colleague will lead on. So we could, as well as sort of looking at that deep dive, what I could do for you is provide a bit of a sort of a page on the sort of targeted work that goes on to support Nuneaton and Bedworth in terms of their sort of health and wellbeing and the things we're doing to improve. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, that's a start anyway. Thank you. Appreciate that. Question from Sue Markham.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is actually to Daniel. Is it Daniel? Can't see from here. I think if you remember, myself and Tim Jenkins had a meeting with you about 12 months ago, and we went through some of these maps for these cycle routes. But we didn't get any, I've had no feedback from those. In fact, I've heard nothing except for this tonight. But this map, unfortunately, isn't really big enough for me to read. But if I go into it, it does look like it's either programmed cycle route or a potential new or upgraded cycle route, because we haven't got colours on ours, so I can't tell you.
Okay.
But I need to know if you're going to be actually having consultation with the local councillors, because I see the one that I actually mentioned to you that you said that you were going to put in was the cycle route off the Nuneaton Road, behind the chip shop up Orchard Street to go to the park. Well, you can't get a car up Orchard Street now, let alone put cycle paths up there. But I see that it's still on there. I don't know whether it's the programmed or whether it's the potential. So really, we need to have some sort of consultation with people that actually know the area. I just wondered if that's going to take place, please.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and you're absolutely right. It doesn't really help that you haven't got colours there. However, we do have a lot of potential routes that cover the network plans, such as the one you've got in front of you. And those potential routes are indicative alignments. Like you said, they are not going to be necessarily the final product. And comments like that, exactly about the type of roads that they've been put down, are definitely open to change as part of the public engagement and then the public consultation activities that will be delivered. So whilst the plans have had full consultation on and people have made comments on those plans as part of the LC Whip consultation process, no detailed designs have yet been completed on those potential routes. Essentially what needs to happen is we pick a route, we secure the funding, and then we move forward with the design of it. And it's at that point that we, the county, would engage with local members, district and county, residents, schools, workplaces, to really generate the feedback that we need to say, yep, that alignment looks good, or whilst you're there, could you also improve this and the footway conditions? So full engagement, and I use engagement and consultation separately because engagement really is that informal discussion, a bit like we had at the leisure centre a year ago, is to say, well, what do we need to change? And consultation means, the actual legal processes involved in rolling out changes to the highway. But you are absolutely right. It needs proper engagement from local people, and that is our intention when the funding comes forward and we have some design work. Like I said, it's a whole network of routes, but they all need to be broken down in an A to B fashion, delivering those linear routes. And at that point, when the schemes come forward, we will do a proper engagement with local people so that we make sure that we get it right.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. Would you make that sort of invitation to all councillors, not just the ones here today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think as part of any scheme that we move forward with and put into the public domain, we absolutely need your support. Whether it's criticism of the scheme, we need more positive support. Because obviously we receive a lot of negative, but if people like the idea or want to change or add to some of the schemes that we're putting forward, because your areas and the problems that parents are probably having with pushchairs to get to schools, for example, we absolutely welcome it, and we will make sure that when we go out to the public with new schemes, we do a member engagement at district, borough level and county level before we probably go public with stakeholder, if that makes sense. So everyone is welcome, and we need to make sure that we push our comms out through the right channels to invite everyone to come along and contribute.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I've got a couple of points really to raise here. On the prevalence of long-term conditions, I note that the data there is connected by a snapshot. There's no long-term gathering of information here. Do we know whether the trend is down or up in this borough compared to the wider picture in Warwickshire? The same thing goes for the prevalence of physical inactivity. We've got a situation here where I can go to Pure Gym in the centre of Nuneaton. It's rammed with young people nearly all the time because it's open 24/7. We have our own leisure centres, and they're open at times when people who go to work early in the morning can't go before work. You know, the swimming pool doesn't open until 7:30. If somebody has to be at work for 8 o'clock, you can't go beforehand. We need to make our facilities available to people at times when they're available to go and exercise. And I would like to know, to what extent are the principles that we're talking about here embedded in the other departments within the county council, particularly highways? Because I've yet to see highways object to a development on the grounds that by building something, it would put more traffic on the roads, and that would prevent people from taking healthy exercise. So, for example, Higham Lane, Nuneaton. It's one of the major routes anybody who wants to cycle or run and get out into the countryside from Nuneaton would travel down. Go down the A47 where we're planning a cycle route, you end up with a long shoot. And I would think anybody who wants to cycle along the A5, in peak time would be mad. But the lanes around Warwickshire and Leicestershire north of the A5 are paradise, and they're on the national cycle route. Yet we've permitted thousands of houses to be built that access onto roads like Higham Lane, Weddington Road, where we paint a little line down the side on Weddington Road and imagine it's going to make people safe. But people are now exercising in a more polluted atmosphere with more traffic on it. They have to cycle further to get to the open spaces they want to be in. Yet I've never seen highways come back to us and say, oh, we would prefer this wasn't built here because it will actually be detrimental to people's health and it will discourage them from taking exercise. Absolutely agree with Councillor Hancock's on the A444 slip roads that were missing. I actually have a letter at home from Warwickshire County Council, the portfolio holder for roads at the time, who promised those roads would be built in the medium term. This is now nearly 40 years later. What constitutes the medium term at Warwickshire? I've seen glacial erosion happen faster than the medium term at Warwickshire. And I agree with Councillor Markham here about Orchard Street as a potential cycle route. You're basically asking to be car doored if you try and cycle down there because there are cars parked on both sides. And finally, I would like to know what maintenance plan you've got for these proposed cycleways. If you want them to be open 12 months of the year, you have to have a strategy for gritting them. Because on an icy morning, if I look out my door and I'm not going to go on the bike, I'm going to get in the car and go on the road rather than risk coming off the bike because nobody's bothered to grit it. And you include canal pathways, which are soaking with mud most of the year. So if we're going to include them as cycle routes, let's liaise with the Canals Trust and get them paved properly. But I would like answers to what extent are we embedding these principles of the departments, please.
Was that to Daniel? Daniel, are you able to address those today in detail, or are you going to put them in writing to everybody?
I mean, I can absolutely provide a response in terms of maintenance. If we start, let's start with Higham Lane, for example. You'll see on the network plan, possibly not very clearly, that most of the infrastructure that we have lined up for potential on Higham Lane sits off Higham Lane itself, and we are badgering developers to include better, high quality infrastructure within the boundary of their development. That's usually because the highway can't accommodate the width that's required for extra cycle provision, for example, where it might only be footway up until certain extents. And we are challenged nearly every day with some of the schemes that we want to put forward with third-party land, restrictions on the highway to widen it and to provide the high-quality linkages that we need along the alignment like Higham Lane. We want to build infrastructure next to Higham Lane because it's just as direct and convenient as it is to get in the car. And that's why we want these corridor routes like the A47, the A444 Weddington Road to come forward, because they are the most direct routes into and out of our town centres. Higham Lane's a little bit problematic, as you will absolutely know better than I do, because of the limited widths of highway space and developers butting right up to that. So therefore, we've got this LC whip document to put in front of developers to say, here's the strategic document that you have to contribute to with your infrastructure. So on the plan, using Higham Lane as an example, you'll see that we've asked the Top Farm development to include high quality provision within their boundaries, slightly off the Higham Lane, to provide the connectivity that people need. It falls short of delivering a route all the way down the Higham Lane because of other major highway schemes that are coming forward that we hope that we can piggyback, but also because the developer has proposed that they can route people walking and cycling through their sites out onto the Weddington Road. Poor example with me just animating with my hands and not having a plan in front of you, but I think my answer here is if you can see an obvious alignment, we've thought of it, and if it isn't included on the map, it's because of third-party land restrictions, width restrictions. That said, with public support at the time of consultation, demanding better, demanding more, and asking for those alignments to be changed, we can work together to develop much better corridor routes. Our network plans that you see within the LC whip are indicative alignments, which we've used to show the quickest route that we would need to deliver best provision so that people can get to where they need to get to without going around the houses, as has been done in the past. We want active travel journeys to be just as direct and convenient as it is for people driving. And so those network plans are not set in stone. And when the schemes come forward for public consultation, we need hands in the air saying, we want more, we want better, and we want you to continue these routes because we the people would like to use them. In terms of maintenance, what we're now doing is when we're seeking external funding from bodies like Active Travel England, we are also including maintenance costs within the request for funding. It's not just about building the scheme. We also add on multiple year maintenance so that we generate the funding that's required to maintain those routes. As time moves on, and you'll see this in the Top Farm development, there are high quality segregated routes running through there, which may require very specialist equipment to go out and grit or to remove and brush out debris. We are now including funding for that type of infrastructure to be included as well. So street cleaners that can't go down cycle tracks at the moment, we want to bring into Warwickshire, and we will ask for that to be included in the business cases that we have. Some of the challenges, obviously, is that the county build the highway and look after the delivery of that, and maintenance and gritting, for example, lives within the districts and the boroughs, and that's where we sometimes see that kind of issue with routes not being done properly, or people not going out and getting the areas that they need gritting, and we need to address that. So I hope that's helped to answer some of your questions. I absolutely support everything you've said, and we are using the team that we have here at Warwickshire to be better, to have more of a vision with actually what else do we need to include. It's not just about spades in the ground to build the infrastructure, it's what's needed over the long term to maintain it. And lighting's also included in there. We need to be a bit sharper with how we produce lighting columns without them being too intrusive. So all those things are being taken into account of and are costed up and included in a lot of the business cases we are putting forward for funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. I was going to leave my question to the end, but because you've slightly brought up something you touched upon regarding lighting, I'll come back to your question, Jack. Right, 3 to 5 years ago, I moved into a brand new building estate by Taylor Wimpey. It's a great place to live. Loads of public footpaths built around, a playground, the usual infrastructure. There's a nice public footpath all the way around, but it's not lit up. Before I became a councillor, I actually asked who's responsible and why, and we got lighting. The house builder said to me, it's not part of the planning. It's to highways. I approached Warwickshire County Council. They hadn't even thought about putting lighting on there. So these lovely footpaths that we have around our estate at the moment, they're unsafe to walk once it gets dark. Once you get off the main road, you can't walk. So lighting is crucial, especially now where people don't feel safe, male or female, do not feel safe cycling or walking. So on public footpaths, is that something, a policy that you can implement throughout Warwickshire now for lighting, whether it's solar lighting, or is it something that you will make sure you do it in the future, but the ones that already have been being done, is you're going to go back and correct those? Because around our area, it's just it's lovely to live, but it doesn't feel safe to walk a few hundred yards because there is no lighting on public footpaths. I go over to the border towards Coventry, where I used to live, and there was a public footpath across a field. It was very well lit, but yeah, I come here and I've got nothing. So is it something that, what's your thoughts on that?
First and foremost, if you don't feel comfortable using the infrastructure, it's failed infrastructure. And I would welcome an email from you if you're happy to share the location to see why you may not have had that area street lit, because if a new development adopts footways, roads and cycleways, it has to be lit. It's a prerequisite. The county council will not adopt a footway or a road or a cycleway unless it meets, depending on what type of road it is. We would request, well, we would command that it is street lit. So I can't say this for sure. It could be that the route that you're talking about has not yet been adopted by the county council. Given it's a development, it can take a number of years for an adoption agreement, a Section 38 adoption agreement to be delivered. And if it hasn't got street lighting, I would almost expect that to be the ultimate snagging item, because the whole point of delivering footpaths and footways is that we've got to make sure people feel safe and comfortable using them, and street lighting is a huge important part of that. As a caveat to that, there are instances where we are unable to put street lighting in. That might be from an ecological standpoint. There may be a roosting area for a certain species or whatever. I'm not entirely sure. I'd be plucking at potential issues there. However, I would encourage you to reach out and drop me an email, because if there's anything I can do to help and dig deeper as to why there might not be street lighting on there, I'd love to help. Sometimes as well, you may find that if it's routes through green spaces, it isn't actually the county that have taken it on. They may actually lie within the realms of the district, who may not always like to have lighting for those kind of comfort and ecological reasons. So, sorry, a very long-winded answer there, but ultimately it's failed infrastructure for you if you're not using it. And I would also question why it's not been lit, and I'd be quite happy to explore that.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. I'll do that. Now, Jack, your question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to talk really mainly about safety with cycling, which I think has already been touched on a little bit. I think there's a couple of things really locally that we can have better here to help with cycling safety. I think first of all, we've got a major issue with a lot of potholes in this part of the world. I imagine it's the same across other parts of Warwickshire as well, but I certainly feel that, you know, as speaking as a parent and speaking as just an ordinary road user, I don't think I'd be comfortable with my daughter going out cycling. I mean, she's 4 tomorrow, but obviously not cycling yet. But when she's old enough, I don't necessarily know if I'm comfortable as a parent letting her go out to cycle, because the road network, there are quite a few potholes on the network, and I feel, you know, for example, when roads are resurfaced and we've got the drainage systems, they go quite deep down into the system, and obviously cycling over that can be potentially quite perilous. So I think potholes in Warwickshire is clearly a problem for cycling safety. I think a second thing as well, and obviously this is not necessarily a county issue as such, I think we need the introduction, if we can, up here, of average speed cameras actually, because in Coventry, to devastating effect for me on my old commute to Tall Hill, average speed cameras were introduced everywhere, and I, as a road user, as a car user, found that I regulated my speed much more carefully, because I was always paranoid about getting the speeding ticket. I think the truth is, I mean, I don't want to make this a national thing, and I don't want to use the term toxic culture, because toxic culture now is used so often. But I think, you know, you go on Reels, you go on YouTube Shorts, and we've got this battle going on social media between cyclists and road users. And you've got these terrible clips of, you know, cyclists and car users, you know, attacking each other. And I know that's not anything we can really do much about, but the problem in the UK, I don't just think it's an Nuneaton issue, I think it's a UK-wide issue in many places. We've got this antagonism between cars and bikes. We haven't got enough space, unfortunately, for these people all to use the same network, in my opinion. I think the truth is we need to look at the Dutch example. I mean, in the Netherlands, bikes have taken over cities over there, and there seems to be a much more positive cycling culture in the Netherlands. And I'm just wondering, is there anything we can learn from them regards making our networks a bit safer in terms of accessibility? Because there are quite a few roads I can think of in Nuneaton where I wouldn't be comfortable cycling. I don't think it would be safe to. I think people speed. I think the corners of roads are quite perilous, as I already said, with the potholes. The second point I want to make very quickly, without rambling on, is I did bikeability this week with my school. It's a good scheme. I think the scheme run through schools is a very good idea. It was very interesting speaking to the instructors after the scheme. They mentioned that our pupils at our school very often are using the path to cycle on. So they're not cycling on roads, our kids, they're cycling on paths, which suggests to me either they're cutting corners, which they probably are to be fair, or they don't feel comfortable using the road network, going on the road properly, because they're scared basically. And as a parent, I'm scared too, because I wouldn't want my kids to be using some of these roads, because people aren't sticking to the speed limits, you know, and you hear these horror stories of residential areas, 30-mile-an-hour areas, where people are driving through at 50, 70 miles an hour. And, you know, as a parent, that's terrifying to think, you know, you just go into the park, going for a residential area with a bike, whatever it is, and someone's going, you know, 50, 70 miles an hour, not necessarily in Nuneaton, but just, you know, in the West Mids in general. But yeah, I think two things for me, really. I think improving average speed cameras and the road safety, getting cars to just be a bit more courteous on the roads. But also, I think in schools, I think bikeability is very good. I think if you can get more funding for bikeability, make it a bit more flexible in terms of bookings, get, you know, increase capacity, for example, because we had 9 this week, for example. I'd love to be able to do, you know, whole classes of 30, you know, in a day, for example, get a lot more kids through the system and get them all the certificate, the qualification. So I think if you can feed back that, I'd love that to be a bigger thing that we can do more capacity building with. That'd be very helpful. But yeah, I'll stop talking now because I'm repeating myself.
Thank you, Jack.
And I would, yeah, I'd love to respond to this because I think you've raised lots of issues very close to my heart. And certainly as somebody heavily involved in bikeability in a former life, training instructors, I know exactly what you mean. And we absolutely will take that back and push for better provision to try and increase numbers. It does come down to funding available to deliver bikeability, but absolutely, if there is, if again, you're more than welcome to reach out and share with me the destination, the school that you are referring to, and we can look to see what we can do with the schools teams and see if we can increase bikeability training around that area. I could talk at length around Dutch infrastructure and what we can learn from the Dutch. I'm not going to, but what I will say is the reason why cycling works in the Netherlands is because the majority of people driving are also cyclists first and foremost. They drive around not because they want to, it's because they're probably going longer distances and they're just choosing to use their car for that utility trip that requires the car. But first and foremost, they're probably somebody that would prefer to be riding around on their bicycle because it is the most easiest way for them. And I found that from spending quite a lot of time over there. And that's where the culture is ingrained. We talk about this cycling culture in the Netherlands. That's because a lot of people are multimodal. They'll use a car for the longer trips. They might use a bike for the shorter trips, and they'll use public transport when friends and family come about and they're out for leisure. It's multimodal. That's the culture that we're trying to achieve, but we are 45 years behind because we're not yet there. There's reasons for that. They're all behavior entrenched, and that's where I could keep you here for a long time. But we do take lessons not from the Dutch, but from from America, dare I say it, those car-centric cities who are handing over, carriageway space to better use of for transport, and that is for cycle lanes. I think America are doing that very well at the moment. We're learning a lot from them. That needs a lot of political support, and therein lies some of the challenges that we have with delivering new infrastructure that changes the highway. But we are very committed to doing that, and that's where we need, people who would like to see change step forward and say, we support this. Potholes is a tricky one because obviously there's funding that goes into a maintenance pot for the county to make those changes. A lot of fingers are being pointed at electric vehicles at the moment. They're heavier and they're causing the damage, but it's just the volume of cars and the weather that we're experiencing and the temperatures that have just decimated our roads over the last 12 to 18 months. It doesn't matter whether there's any fingers to be pointed. We need to remedy it. I would absolutely not want any children riding on the roads where there are huge potholes. And that is why we're keen to make sure whatever infrastructure we put forward is fit for an 8-year-old to cycle to school on. We shouldn't be sharing the road that is pothole driven, that's got high volume vehicle movements on. And we're very passionate about making that clear. Painted lines on the road do not protect our children. And that's why we will always try to push for the better high quality provision. But what I will say is, on those network plans which I've referred to tonight, where we have new schemes that are proposed and we get funding for, there is a good chance that the carriageway will also get resurfaced as part of new cycle routes being put in. Because if we're building and widening footways and we're putting in cycle tracks, there's going to be resurfacing, which means that cycling infrastructure and active travel infrastructure could contribute to the improvement of the highways that we're using, the A47s, the A444, and all the other roads that interconnect with them. So I hope that helps. And thank you for your questions and your points. They are noted. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to support the a response on the average speed cameras. That would be our road safety engineering team. And I can take that back as an action to kind of have a chat with them and ask some questions about what the plans are for usage of those. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Daniel. Michelle, so try and keep.
I'll try and be quick because I know we're going to be pushed for time. Please, public health team, can you please respond more to planning applications? It always says about embedding health and well-being in the planning process. I have yet to see any planning application come forward for anything big or large. In fact, in all the while I've been involved in planning, not just on the, now that I'm on the committee, but way before I was a councillor and things, I have never seen a response from that. So please, I have asked before and things. Dan, how do we convert people to see cycling positively? I'm thinking particularly of the leader of Warwickshire County Council. We've had only just in the last few months the Longford roundabout agreed without the proper cycling provision and things, because they didn't deem it necessary and things. And it's criminal. It just shouldn't be allowed that we have any new schemes come forward without having the cycle infrastructure, you know, with it. And the other thing is also, like, on new developments and things, it seems crazy with everything that we've read, everything that's been presented today, that we, you know, have a spine road going through the new developments and things, but that's got housing on or either side and things. We've heard that, you know, living on main roads and things is far worse for air quality and all your health implications of that. So it seems crazy that we've got all these new developments with housing right on all the main roads that go through them. I can only think on Horston Grange, the Cambourne Drive loop is the only place I can think of. There is just only one house that actually has its address on Cambourne Drive. Cambourne Drive is basically the road that takes people around, and then everyone lives off it. And that should be, to me, how planning, you know, developments are actually planned, with a spine route or main road or whatever you want to call it, with no housing on, that is purely for the traffic and what have you, and then all the housing is actually on the sides there and things. And then again, it comes down to maintenance and things. We get stupid things in planning. I'm thinking of the Davidsons on Weddington Road. So we've got a little bit of cycle provision there. You come off Weddington Road, but the cycle route only goes straight parallel to Weddington Road. If you actually want to go into the housing estate, there's not even a dropped curb for the cyclist to take. I actually have to stop and sort of, you know, go down the curb and things. So it's these little things, street sweeping, you know, on bits that we have got on Weddington Road, Higham Lane. I'm forever having to ask for it to be, you know, reswept. We have a storm, and then it becomes horrible to cycle on and things. So I think that's probably covered all the bits I wanted to.
Daniel, could you take some of these points away and maybe address them in an email, which might be better?
I'd be very happy to. Yes, of course.
Are you happy with that, Michelle? I'm mindful of the time. Thank you. We have a question from Jamie Deputy.
Hiya. I've got 4 questions. 2 of them are yes or no answers, so we'll go with those first. With what Councillor Dillon said about the lighting on footways and cycleways on new developments, is there a survey planned for the pre-existing infrastructure to see if there is a need to upgrade either lighting or to install lighting for the first time?
That will be covered by our street lighting team, and I would hazard, I mean, I can't answer for them, but my guess would be yes, and I think they would welcome being contacted to ask directly if that helps.
Second one is on the maps of your potential cycle routes. There are a few areas that are showing as missing, notably I'm thinking Camp Hill, Stockingford and Bulkington. I'm assuming that these are included in a plan, but obviously it's just the size of the paper. Is there a option to view any routes for this online?
Answer yes. So the LC whip, the whole plan is available on the County Council website, and each of the plans can be seen much better capacity than what you've got tonight. In terms of the plans that I put on your sheets, there is a Nuneaton East and a Nuneaton West plan, because obviously we weren't able to put everything into readable formats within one PDF. And also out to Bulkington as well, there are routes proposed. Obviously, a lot of the LC whip concentrates on routes leading into and around the very built-up urban areas, but it's a 10-year plan, which means that we need to add to those as the years go on. If we start delivering some of those corridor routes, a new vision and new lines need to be put onto that map. So yes, do visit the online version and open it up and dissect it, but you will see there is a lot more going on in the west of the town centre and that area.
And my final point, for my chair, final question on the challenges and opportunities under climate change and air quality. There is a point here to trial e-bikes and e-cargo bikes for last mile freight deliveries. Is this to do with presumably things like shopping and food takeaways, or is that more aimed at industry? Or if so, what's the sort of aim for that? Because obviously, if you're trying to do it for, say, light industry or maybe even medium industry, you're going to struggle to get a lot of things onto an e-cargo bike.
And a very good point. I think the idea here is to make sure that when we're working within town centres, the LC WIP shows corridor routes or long linear routes, but within the LC WIP itself, we've got active travel zones, and those active travel zones are area-wide portions of our town centres where we would like to see last mile delivery encompassing everything that you said. We'd like to see less vans visiting our high streets and some form of consolidation area just outside the town centre where it switches over. Those vans can deliver, drop off their cargo, and they get shuttled into the town centres using electric bikes, e-cargo bikes. It's very aspirational, it's very visionary, and we have to build the networks to enable to unlock that. But that's the long-term plan that we'd like to see. And of course, that would work very nicely with the food delivery. We'd like to see better infrastructure provided for those delivery services, where we'd like to also supplement some of those services with e-cargo bikes, so that we've got a viable employment opportunity there as well. So it's in the pipeline. It means working with other teams to try and look at how we bring that in. But everything that you mentioned there is what we're looking at, is kind of that last mile to restrict the number of vehicles that are coming in to drop off one package, and then they go out, and then another vehicle comes in. If we could have a consolidation area where they get dropped off and then shuttled backwards and forwards in more sustainable modes, that's the goal. And it will take a while to try and develop that, but that is the goal.
Thank you, Daniel. That's all the questions that we have for yourselves. Thank you for your presentation, appreciate it. Alistair, is that for yourself now? Should we let them go? Yeah, thank you. We'll let you sort of leave the meeting, but you're welcome to stay if you wish. But otherwise, we'll thank you for everything you've done today. Thank you.
Very kind. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, Chair. We're just going to switch over onto the presentation Rachel's going to do now.
Hi there. Good evening. My name is Rachel Fleeson. I'm from Environmental Health. The presentation that I've got is in your pack, and I'm very conscious of time, so I might try and go through it fairly quick, but we'll take questions at the end. So I've been asked to come here to explain Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council's role in monitoring and improving air quality. But before I do that, I just wanted to go through the government's role and what the role of DEFRA is, to try and set some boundaries, because there's only so much we can actually do at a local level. So DEFRA produce a framework for local authorities that we should adhere to, and this applies to all local authorities, should have regard to this framework. It includes ourselves and Warwickshire County Council. We should really work together to improve air quality in the borough. The other role that DEFRA have is to, they measure air pollutants across the whole of the country. They've got a number of scientific air quality stations, and a new one's going in Bedworth to get more local information. These air quality stations have real-time information and give a lot more detailed information than we have at a local level. This is a slide from the document. Again, it reflects that air quality is a joint responsibility, and it also gives some ways that authorities can do to improve air quality. So our role, just to summarise, is to monitor, report and manage air quality. To do this, we need to engage with various stakeholders, such as county transport planners, highways, public health and planning, some of whom you've heard from earlier on. We do have a steering group that meets these stakeholders, and the idea is that we talk about the measures that we can put in place to tackle air quality in the borough. I'm just going to give a very brief oversight on how we actually carry out the monitoring. So we do monitor for carbon dioxide levels in the borough. We have 42 sites, and an officer goes out monthly, collects the tubes, sends them off for analysis, and these are used to give long-term trends to see whether nitrogen dioxide levels are increasing, in which areas, or whether, as they have been, they are decreasing. I don't know, probably can't see that very clearly, but the blue dots indicate where our tubes are. And then what we use, the data from this, we produce an annual status report for Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council. This has to be submitted to DEFRA, who evaluate it. It's always the year before's data, so the 2025 ASR gives the results for 2024. We'll get the results for 2025 and get them evaluated, and that will be in the summertime of this year. If you want more detail, the reports are actually on our website, and those reports, for all those 42 locations, you can actually see the data on there compared to the year before, so we can see the trends. Okay, again, I'm very conscious of time, so the ASR is used to inform policies and to look at things that we can do to reduce emissions from things like traffic, heating, industry, and promoting cleaner air. As I say, there's only so much we can do as a borough authority, because we haven't got control over a lot of these items. But what we can do is try and bring people together from different parties, different stakeholders, to try and improve things. Just to give a quick overview, the actual trends are getting better. So our nitrogen dioxide and PM 2.5 levels are below the UK safety targets. There's a general trend of reducing, and a lot of that is probably due to cleaner vehicles. But again, as I said, if you want more detail, if you go and have a look at the ASR, you can see the readings from each of those locations. Okay. I have put something about the air quality management areas, because we have revoked these 2 air quality management areas. They were declared a number of years ago due to exceedances. as the levels have been decreasing and we've put the reports into DEFRA, DEFRA have directed that these should be removed. So both these two areas have now been revoked. But what it doesn't mean is we're going to stop monitoring. We will still monitor at all those locations. So if the trends increase, we can see that, or hopefully, as has been going on in the past, they will continue to decrease. And because we now no longer have the air quality management areas, this year we'll be looking at to develop an air quality strategy for the whole borough. And again, that's continuing with stakeholders such as Warwickshire County Council, planning, public health, and the idea will be to try and make improvements across the whole borough on air quality. This slide just gives the two areas that were revoked and the reasons why. So, for instance, Midland Road, that's just been revoked, but they had 5 years of compliance. So again, with that amount of compliance, DEFRA instruct us that it really shouldn't be an air quality management area anymore, and to move through to a borough-wide strategy. Some of the interventions that have taken place recently or are going to take place. So I think the buses have already been mentioned. We put restrictions on taxis so that they become cleaner. The electrical charge points, there are plans to expand those across the borough and across the county, but I recognise that hasn't been done perhaps as quickly as people would like. And also the new monitoring station that's been installed, that will give us better local data. And perhaps just some take-homes from it is that there is more that could be done. We need more public engagement. We need to look at active travel and cleaner vehicles, educate the public in what they can do to help. And we need to all work together because there isn't just one thing that will fix and improve air quality. There's lots of different aspects that need to come together. Thank you. I'm sorry that was very quick, but
no, thank you. So any questions, could we keep them targeted, and also maybe I'm conscious of time and we can try and get written answers as well, if detailed written answers to everybody. So the first question, Michelle.
Thank you. I just wanted to sort of really point out one thing on the current status and things. It says nitrous dioxide and PM 2.5 levels are below UK safety targets, but as far as I'm aware, we don't actually monitor for PM 2.5, so I don't think we can actually say that those are going down because we only monitor for nitrous dioxide. You've just said that they're just going to put in something that will do PM 2.5s in Bedworth, but that hasn't actually gone in yet. So I think that's not quite a true statement, unless I don't know about something.
Thank you.
Hello there. When the report goes out, they take the national levels and evaluate. So they haven't got those levels at very local points in the borough, but it's taken as the borough as the whole.
Thank you. We have Sue Malcolm.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, the air quality monitors that you've got, obviously they're all around both Nuneaton and Bedworth, but do they get moved, or are they there for, say, 10 years? Because obviously with all the new infrastructure that we've got going on, it might be okay there now, but it might not be okay up the road. So I'm just wondering if they actually get moved and how long they're actually in situ for.
A lot of them have been there for a number of years. We have moved some quite recently. We moved some last year, and we've also moved some this year to take into account where some of the new development is. So we're trying to really pick up some of the worst areas where we suspect that air quality may be impacted. So we do review and move them. We've also got a few that give background levels, because we do need to know, what the background level is. But yeah, we do review and move. And if there's any particular concerns that people can have over those, then they could feed it into us, and we would look then whether we should relocate any of the tubes.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. What are the factors that decide where we place a measuring tube? You've got a steering group, but I'm substituting on this committee. It's not clear to me what decides. I mean, some of them are obvious. I can see a number of them are roads off the Ring Road in Nuneaton, for example, and that type of thing. But do we have an input into where they are?
Do you mean as members or kind of, if people have got concerns or members have got concerns, if you look at where they are and you think actually there's a lot of potential traffic going down a different route, then yeah, you could feed that into us and we would look at it. We generally wouldn't move the tubes halfway through the year, because what we're doing is collecting data over the whole year. So if there were concerns, we could look at that, you know, and see whether we could put more tubes, or, I mean, obviously each tube that we have has an impact on sort of cost and somebody servicing it. And we have to put it in a suitable location as well. So we have to put them so they can't get vandalised and they're easy to get to. But yeah, if you look at the map and you've got concerns, feed that into us and we will look at those.
Sorry, very quick.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because obviously we're showing some places where we've had these tubes in long term, and we're now showing that we're not exceeding and there's been improvements. And it seems to me it would be a really useful thing that where we know we've got a large-scale development coming along, for example, a planned industrial estate on Bowling Green Lane in Bedworth, we know that the traffic up School Lane is going to be an issue from this. We could put a monitoring tube in now to establish a base level, and then monitor it as the development progresses and is completed to see whether there is a detrimental effect by having gone through developing that estate. And it seems to me that if we're already have established what the pollution level is on Abbey Green long term, and it's not really changing, we'd be better placed moving some of these monitors to sites to establish base level pollution now, where we know there's going to be development coming.
We can look into that. As I say, we can't. What we can't do, if we change some of the monitors now, we're not going to get a year's worth of data to, because it has to be benchmarked, so it gets sent away and then it's kind of tweaked depending on national levels and verified. I mean, I can, if you've got a particular site like Bowling Green Lane, we can have a look at that and see where the tubes are in relation to that, and then sort of evaluate whether we're going to catch the traffic from those areas. I suppose the only thing is that more people are moving to electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, so generally it's getting kind of cleaner, and levels are just naturally reducing because of that. So even if the traffic is increasing, it may not show in the air pollution level.
I'm thinking the industrial estate's not good.
Yeah. But we can take that back.
Thank you. I think we have one last question from Christian Smith. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of observations. The charging infrastructure, the new chargers, the linked document from the presentation to the Warwickshire document indicates there's like nearly £3.3 million set aside for installation of new chargers, of these 700 plus new chargers. So is any of that coming tonight? Have we had any of that funding at all in Nuneaton and Bedworth?
We have, but I don't have that information, unfortunately, in front of me, because it's a colleague of mine who's been leading on that. particular piece of work, so we can go away and we can confirm that to you.
Okay, so this is work in progress then?
Yeah, I understand that there is investment coming, and that's been taken up by Jonathan in terms of looking at where we can get that money invested.
Cool. And my second comment would be about the buses and the new EV buses. I mean, it's a welcome addition to the network. Clearly, they're going to be cleaner. There's no tailpipe emissions. But I noticed that they're all big buses, and invariably when they go past my house, they're almost always empty. So, what are we doing to get people to actually use these buses? It seems like a waste of electricity. There'd be less energy than is used by a diesel bus to go around the town empty, but we still need these buses used. So how can we encourage people onto the buses?
I think that's something that we would take back to the steering group, because the buses ultimately are controlled by the county. We have had some conversations in the last month with county around bus use, and I think it's already been alluded to about when the bus stops and the days they work, and actually they need to be at the right place in the right time. But I think that's something that we will take back to the steering group and see how we can get some more traction, pardon the pun, on that with the county and the bus companies.
Thank you. That brings that item agenda to a close. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. That report is for noting. Yeah, just for noting. Yeah. So everybody, I do apologise. It's gone on a long time, and I really appreciate your sort of patience in it. We've had two big, important presentations tonight, which is a bit unusual, but. So you can understand the questions. Are you happy to continue, or do anybody need a break? Oh, we need to vote on the recommendation. I thought is that just for noting? Do we need to vote on that? We didn't vote. Oh, somebody second that then. Yeah, I'll second. You'll second that. We need to vote on that. Everybody happy to have that for noted? That was, yeah. The air quality report. Everybody's happy to get that. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's me rushing a little bit. Is everybody happy to carry on yourselves? Are you happy with your presentation to carry on? Okay. All right, then. The floor's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm Shabina Khalifa. I'm from Health Watch Warwickshire. I'm the Engagement Intelligence Lead for Warwickshire North, so I cover Nuneaton, Bedworth and all the rural North Warwickshire areas. So if you don't know what Health Watch is, we are the independent patient voice. So I go and speak to local residents about what their experiences are of healthcare and social care services. And then I feed that information back to the service providers, and we then question them and say, what is it, this is working really well, how can we improve on it? And this isn't working so well, what are you doing about it to improve things for patients? We also do signposting, so if anybody calls us or emails us or looks at our online form, they can get in touch with us and we can help them with any issues they're having, or if they don't know which service to access for something, we can help with that. And then the engagement and outreach is me going out and speaking to everybody. I'm going to keep this really brief because I know that you've all got loads to do. Right, some important news. Last June, there was an announcement that health watches across the country are being abolished. Since then, we had heard nothing until the end of January, so we had no timescales on when that was going to be. We've now heard that funding from the Department of Health and Social Care is up until March 2027. However, our contract with Warwickshire County Council ends in October 2027, so there will be a funding gap. So I just wanted to highlight that and let you know. There's a health and reform bill coming out. Once that piece of legislation has been put through Parliament and through the House of Lords, then we will have more information on when the abolishment is going to happen. At this stage, we don't, what they're saying is that local authorities and the ICB will then have to take over that function of the independent patient voice, and it has to then be in-house. How that works is something that we're not aware of. So what we've done is we're going to have an annual conference on the 16th of June, so that we can let partners and stakeholders know what exactly we do as Health Watch and what kind of functions they would be expected to take on. If you're not aware, the ICBs have all clustered, so Coventry and Warwickshire are now clustered with NHS Herefordshire and Worcestershire, and are going to be sharing leadership functions. There's some information on changes at George Eliot Hospital and the GP online triage service. So just something to be aware of, because this is something that I came across today as well, is that GPs must, a lot of the GPs locally are moving to online services and then insisting that patients go to the online form before they can book an appointment. However, the Department of Health have put out some more guidance to say that patients should be allowed a choice, so they can't just, the surgery can't just insist on them using the online form. They have to be able to book by telephone or face-to-face as well. So just to make you aware of that, and for you to share. I have shared that information with the GP surgeries locally, but it's nice to be able to share that with you as well. How far does our reach go? So we present to scrutiny committees, the ICB, local place partnerships. So there's 3 of us on that are engagement leads. I cover North Warwickshire, there's a South Warwickshire lead, Caroline, and Vina in Rugby, and between the 3 of us, we all sit on one place partnership. We go to health and wellbeing boards, and then our chief exec, Chris, goes to the care collaboratives and the regional health watches. We sit on the research and insight groups. My colleague reports back to adult social care teams. I work really closely with primary care networks and local pharmacy networks. I also work really closely with your community development teams at both councils. How do we do the engagement? I like to go out and just meet people, so I'll go to anywhere and everywhere that there's a group of people. For example, this week I've been in Leamington, Atherstone, Nuneaton and Coleshill today. So I like to get out and about and meet as many people as I can, because that's the best way. Just sit and listen to everyone and, you know, let them have a moan and tell me what's going on. So that's how we capture our information. Now, I wanted to focus, because we capture data from all of Warwickshire, I wanted to give you some data around Nuneaton and Bedworth specifically, because they're very different. I just want to highlight one thing. Councillor Brown just said about long-term conditions. That is something that we do record. If people tell us about that they have a long-term condition, it's not in the report, but I can get that information if you think that's useful. So as you can see, the demographics, most of the people we speak to are in the 50 to 80 bracket. That's because they're the ones that are visiting warm hubs or community groups, whereas other age brackets are at work, so I may not be able to get their information as quickly. The majority of residents are white British, but I'm trying to get as many different voices as I can by visiting faith groups and community groups, so I do try and get around as much as I can. The majority of the feedback we've had for health and social care has been negative over the last 3 months, between February and December. This is not unusual, I would say, at the moment. It's something that I feed back now very regularly to the service providers, whereas the feedback wasn't sent before, so they are getting more timely information now. So there's just some comments there from different people that I've spoken to. The most common themes. So we theme our feedback based on the information that we get from the residents. Quality of treatment is one that we get a lot of. Now, it's not always about negative treatment. Quality of treatment can also be positive. So if someone's had really good experience. Now, when I'm out and about, I hear a lot. The main complaints are around booking appointments rather than the quality of treatment. When they can actually see a clinician, people are quite happy with the treatment and the referrals that they get. The communication could be a little bit better. That's something that patients say sometimes healthcare professionals can lack empathy, or they communicate in language that the patient doesn't understand. So we pass this information again onto the providers. we have had a lot of complaints about digital and online services. With our elderly population, that's expected. They're not comfortable with wanting to use online services, but it's something that they're being forced into. So a lot of training needs to happen. I know the GP surgeries are offering patients support, but it's not consistent throughout. For Bedworth, again, most of the people I spoke to were white British, a bit of a better demographic. This is probably because I've been at community groups, events where the younger population have been there. For example, the Kind Communities, Kind Food events, that kind of thing. I do go to quite a lot of events as well to try and capture as much data as I can. However, I just want to highlight that I do have a huge geographical area and I only work part-time. So I do my best and I do get told, well, that's not representative of the population. I get that a lot from the primary care networks and the GP surgeries, but it's a lot more than what they get. So I'm kind of like trying my best here. Right. Sentiment for Bedworth, again, a lot of it was negative. Again, it's around access to appointments and booking appointments. You know, A&E is always a big one because of the waiting times, and radiology is one that we hear a lot about because of the long waiting times for results. So people get the x-rays done quite quickly but don't get the results for months and months on end. So again, this is all fed back to the hospital. I sit on the patient care experience groups, I go to the patient forums, so it's constantly being highlighted. And these reports, what you're seeing here is the verbatim comments I do send to the hospital as well. So it is being highlighted, but I don't have control of what they do about it. So, you know, I can just keep pushing. Let's go on to the next one. So I also wanted to include some information from healthcare professionals themselves, because we do ask for their information. So the comments here around CAMS and autism diagnoses and the ADHD assessments, particularly for adults that have been stopped from age 25, I believe. That's because there's too many ADHD assessments that need happening for children, so they're trying to catch up. They've stopped it, they've put a pause on it for now. Care home beds, there's not enough in Warwickshire North compared to the south. The healthcare professionals are saying sometimes CAMS referrals are done by schools and GPs, but they're done too quickly. It's more around the child not being able to cope with normal things in life. So maybe they need to work more closely with schools to, you know, like promote good mental health and things like that. And then I wanted to provide some comments around community and support services. So I do go to like support groups to find out information. Whilst I'm there, it's not just about what is it that you're complaining about in terms of healthcare, but what is this group? How valuable is this group for you? If this group didn't exist, what would happen? And a lot of the feedback I get, particularly around the warm hubs and places like People in Action, is that it's really valuable to the people that need that service, and they find the support there that they need. And then I wanted to give you some feedback on mental health services. Again, all of this information is sent back to Coventry and Warwickshire Partnership Trust. They get the information regularly, and we have regular meetings with them to say, you know, this is the feedback we're getting. So it is a two-way street. There's back and forth between us. And then finally, I just wanted to talk to you quickly about the current projects that we're working on. So at the moment, as I'm going around doing the normal engagement, I'm also asking people's experiences of the NHS 111 service, urgent care and treatment centres, and the minor injuries units. So if you can encourage people to complete that survey online. If you want paper copies, I can provide those. I can drop them off at the council and get them sent out if you need that. Discharge to assess. So Warwickshire County Council have asked us to get people's views on when patients are discharged from hospital and going to care homes. How has that experience been? What's the 6-week funding that they get? Is that useful? That kind of thing. So that's in progress. We've just recently completed the phlebotomy services report. So I was out at the phlebotomy local centres asking people's views on what their experiences are of booking a blood test. Is the centre within in a distance that they can get to? Is it easy to get to? That kind of thing. All of these reports are on our website, so please go and have a look at them. Children and young people is an ongoing project that we do, so we're constantly speaking to young people. I was at the college jobs fair this week, just speaking to young people about how can healthcare be improved, how can we make things better for younger people so they feel confident in coming to us and seeking the support that they need. And the one thing they said to me repeatedly was, dumb down the language so we understand it, and come to our PHSE lessons or PDP lessons at college and explain to us, how do we do this? How do I contact a doctor's surgery? So that's something that I'm going to feed back to the healthcare professionals. We have a quarterly performance report that is on our website, so please take a look at that. That will give you a wider view of all of what's happening in Warwickshire, but also within the different areas of South, North and Rugby. We've done a piece of work around PSA testing because we've been told that the doctors aren't referring people for PSA testing. So again, these reports are all online. If you're not aware, we also do interim view visits. So we have statutory powers to walk into any healthcare or social care setting and do an interim view visit, similar to how the CQC would go in and look at look at the building, look at how the patients are treated, how are the staff dealing with the patients, that kind of thing. So all of these things are available on our website. We have regular meetings with the adult social care team and contract monitoring, so it's all passed back around adult social care information to those as well. I also go to a lot of patient engagement groups or GP surgery participation groups. So when I get invited to these meetings, I also go to the parish council meetings. I try and do targeted pieces of work so that they see what's happening for that surgery or for that location, so they can have a look at what the healthcare needs are there. I think that's it. And that's it. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Thank you for that. Do we have any questions? Right, we have a couple of questions. I'll let Christian go first.
Thank you for that. I've been looking at some of the links from your presentation. One thing that interested me was the PSA testing. I didn't actually know what PSA stood for, and I went to the link and I actually had to look all the way down. I wonder if maybe better just to use the word prostates and make it a bit more obvious to make what they're actually looking at, because it wasn't clear from the presentation.
I'll take that back. Thank you, and we'll make sure that we amend that on the website. Thank you.
Question from Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Well, it's more a comment and a question, if that's okay. It'll be very quick. The issue about GP appointments, it's not rocket science, really, is it? Because if you can't get an appointment, then you end up down A&E, and then A&E are flooded out with people there. And you know, it is really difficult. I mean, I can just give a personal example. Last week or the week before, I went to ask for an appointment at the health centre in Bedworth because I was asked to go up and make one. When I went up there, they said, yes, you can have an appointment. It'll be March the 20th. I said, oh, that's not very good, is it? She said, oh, let me have a look. So she said, oh, I can do better than that. It'll be March the 17th. I said, oh, that's better, 3 days. But then it went on to say, but it'll have to be a telephone appointment. So it's clearly kind of not working right for people, and that's how people end up down A&E. So that was my comment. My question would be, as Healthwatch, or were Healthwatch, because it's already happened, were Healthwatch consulted on the closure of the lymphedema clinic at the hospice?
We weren't consulted, but the chief exec of Mary Ann Evans Hospice is also our chairman. So we were made aware of it, but it wasn't something that we were consulted on. And I don't think it would be something that we would be consulted on. But I can take that back.
But all I'd like to say, Chair, it was a really valuable provision locally. Coventry didn't actually have the provision. They used to send people to us. And now that's been closed. I know hospices aren't supported totally by the NHS, so that's part of the reason. But now, I forget where it is that people have got to travel to, but it's some distance away. So I think it's a real loss to our community, and it should be reported back and reinstated if possible.
Could you take that back again? Yeah. Sorry, can I just say one more thing? Although like there's plans for us to be abolished, it's business as usual until then. So we are still doing what we normally do, and we're still out there and we're still doing things. So if there's anything that you want from us, please get in touch with us.
Question from Michelle.
Just one quick question, really. I mean, as long as I was involved in the NHS, I graduated in 1986, there's always been some sort of independent thing. It used to be community health councils when I was first qualified, and it sort of morphed into different things, obviously. Who can we sort of lobby? Because you've said that it's going to be the ITBs and things, but that's not going to be independent if they're running it themselves and things. So who do we lobby? Is it our MPs or whatever to say, you know, the government actually needs to fund something that is totally independent from the organisations that they're sort of scrutinising, looking at, whatever term you want to use?
It would be the Department of Health and Social Care and West Street Inn that you would need to lobby, but yeah, the local MPs as well. Any support that you can give would be really helpful. It has been raised multiple times because as a whole, Healthwatch has never been criticised for the work that we do. So we can't even understand why we're being abolished at the moment. So yeah, any support you can provide would be great.
Thank you. One quick question for myself. Following on from the earlier report, they sort of highlighted that diabetes was on the increase locally. Something for you to take back. How closely do you work with Diabetes UK? I used to be a sort of champion with them and doing workshops in my voluntary spare time, highlighting the education, especially to ethnic people and all over, doing workshops everywhere, just getting that information out there regarding dietary, because type 2 is health related, and it can be reversed if you just make little changes in your life, not major ones. How closely are you working with Diabetes UK, and how can we get them sort of mostly, especially in our area now, if that's slightly on the increase, that's something we can actually reverse. So how closely do you work with Diabetes UK so we can recommend back?
Funnily enough, I've got a meeting with them on Monday. Yeah. So the regional, they've just recruited a regional engagement lead who used to work for Xyla Health Services, again, diabetes related. So Karina Moldovan is the contact there. So I'm going to be meeting with her on Monday to see how well we can work together. I know that she is also supporting the Ramadan diabetes event that George Eliot Hospital are putting on. I don't know if it's done. I think it might have been last week. So they are involved, but I think Karina's trying to make those links stronger, and hopefully I'll find out more information on Monday.
The only feedback I have is if you can get them to advertise more, because not many people are aware how you can go on their courses, how anyone can be a volunteer champion with Diabetes UK, to go on their courses in your time, and it's really rewarding, especially with people who might have retired or have an interest. They can actually set up workshops, and it makes such a difference, and they support you all the way. But not many people know that exists. I mean, I only stumbled across it through personal circumstances. Well, I didn't know about it, but I think there needs to be more awareness that people can actually help in the community to become, because lots of retired nurses, it doesn't have to be anybody clinical, it could be anybody, you know, that can take that on board and learn from there and go on their course and then promote it locally. So we can take that feedback, especially if our numbers are going up. It'd be nice to bring them back down. Okay, thank you.
No worries, I'll send that back to her.
Anybody? No? Okay, lovely. Thank you. Policies also for noting. Do you have somebody for a second? Okay, look, everybody happy to? Thank you. Thank you. And if we have any more questions, we'll email you direct. Thank you. Thank you for your time. So sorry about the wait. Moving on to item number 9. Steve, sorry. I'll let you, talking person today. Floor's all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Before I get on to the actual second quarter performance report, I just wanted to give a quick update on the corporate performance review. At the last round of OSPs, we were awaiting approval for a business case for external support so that we can automate the performance process as much as possible. That was granted, and external support was external support commenced on the 6th of January, and the current position is we're scoping the project to establish a timeline for implementation. So moving to the second quarter summary, could I refer the panel to page 47 of the agenda where the summary charts are? I'll start with the strategic risk register. There are 16 risks within the remit of the panel, 11 are net green and 5 are net amber. Again, I'll remind the panel that net means given the mitigations that have been put in place. The 5 net amber risks are R8, failure to deliver key elements of the corporate plan, R16, cybercrime or attack, R20, pandemic, service, social and economic implications, and R25, non-compliance of freedom of information, environmental information and general data protection regulations. And the final one is R34, and that relates to corporate fraud. Moving to the charts that are on the right-hand side of the page. Freedom of information and environmental information requests, which have a 20-day turnaround time. There have been slightly more received this year, 446 compared to 391 in the same period last year. But no high volume subject trends have been identified. As regards complaints, which have a 10-day turnaround time, slightly less have been received this year, 727 compared to 786 in the same period last year. Again, no high volume subject trends were identified. As regards member inquiry forms, much less have been received this year, 279 compared to 394 in the same period last year. But housing with 129 and leisure and culture 58 make up 67% of the total. And finally, in relation to performance measures, there are 17 measures within the remit of the panel. 11 of these have comparable trend data. Of these 11, 4 have improved, 3 stayed the same, and 4 have a decline trend. Of the 6 remaining measures, 4 have no comparable trend data. 1 measure relates to service demand, and 1 is currently not available, which relates to agency staff, and we should have that, or agency spend, and we should have information on that. It'll probably be more than 1 measure, though, I think, but that'll be available for the 3rd and 4th quarter. Details of all the performance measures are shown on pages 48 to 50 of the agenda. That concludes the summary, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Michelle.
Thank you. And just a couple of things. In terms of this Microsoft, what's it called, Power BI thing, are you going to make sure that it's compatible with the systems that Warwickshire County Council are using and the other boroughs? Because obviously there's going to be, you know, LGR coming down the line, so we need to make sure the systems are all aligned. So is there work going on to see how all the other boroughs and county are doing things? Because I know they do use Power BI.
Yeah, in terms of looking at other authorities, I spoke to all of the other districts, and none of them were going down the Power BI route, and they said they would want to jump onto whatever we're doing. So that I didn't approach the county council, but generally Microsoft Power BI is a standard software, so it will be compatible. I'm certain of that.
On page 50, the PRO3, spend with local suppliers, and then it says UK or international. So international are not local suppliers. It seems just the wording's wrong there, because we've got spend with local suppliers, i.e. in the borough, then Walks and West Midlands, and then UK and international is basically everything else, so it's not local suppliers. So I think that needs to be renamed or looked at.
If I can, Chair, I can come back on that. So the KPI is categorised as spend with local suppliers, but we separate that down into 3 categories. But we call it spend with local suppliers because ideally we want to identify and increase the amount of spend we can with our local suppliers. It's just the top level, but we then break it down. It's probably better to actually put it in a chart and show you it that way, but it's trying to categorise it as one KPI, but split accordingly into 3 sections. So to change the name would make it look like it's a different KPI, but the intention of it is not to do that. Hopefully that clarifies, Chair.
Thank you for that. Do we have any further questions? Anybody? Councillor Brown.
Just like to pick up on Councillor Condacor's point there. On those 3 measures, PR1, 2 and 3, it would be useful to know what the overall spend was and the number of suppliers in each category, because we don't know if the local supplier was 8.24% of £1 million or £10,000, and if it was spread amongst 10 suppliers or 1 supplier. It would just be useful to give us a better picture of how we're spreading the wealth locally and nationally.
Yeah, I think I've said on previous meetings, the reports will get better and better once we get the external support to know how we can embed the Microsoft Power BI software. So the idea is that ultimately we would like everybody, whether that's managers or councillors, to have their own portal where they can see the information in real time, so they could see the percentage and all the associated figures that go with it. So that's where we want to be. I'm not saying it's going to be very quick, but ultimately, that's where we want to go. Okay.
Thank you, Steve. Christian.
Last week I asked you about the member inquiry forms and you explained why they'd gone down. It might be worth repeating for this panel the difference in member inquiry forms and the purpose of why they might have gone down since last year.
Yeah, in terms of the member inquiry forms, the issue we do have is that there are designated forms that should be used. And as you can see, the housing and leisure and culture ones are quite a high percentage. Well, there are designated forms for those areas, so we shouldn't really be getting those. But we've had less this time, so it is a case of perhaps more members. I don't know for definite. I know there's an item later on MEFs that members now are using the designated forms more than they have been in the past, doing the right thing really. That's the way we want to go, because the designated forms are there for a purpose, and they're also different timescales. And member inquiry forms are more for quick queries that can have a turnaround of about a day or 2.
Because this is the first, I think we maybe need some more training, because I am totally unaware that there being any specific forms for housing or various other inquiries. I know there are for fly tipping and grounds maintenance and all those and things, but anything else I just put through on an MEF, because that's what I've been told to do. There are to my knowledge, I'll have another look in the morning, but there are no forms for housing or anything that are separate to MEFs.
I think my colleague said he would touch on that in the MEF item that's on the agenda later.
Thank you. No further questions. Right, this is for noting, so could we have somebody second that? Jamie? Oh, I thank you, Jackie, as well. There's two of you. Is everybody happy to sort of agree for this to be noted? Any objections? No? Okay, lovely, thank you. Moving on to item number 10. I believe it's on Teams.
Good afternoon, or good evening, councillors. How are you?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Oh, my camera's on, so apologies. I'm just here to present the people strategy that has been drafted for review for the panel to then move forward to Cabinet for approval and adoption. So I will keep it brief. The people strategy covers 5 key areas with objectives and a roadmap for targets within those areas, and sets out the next 3 years from 2026 to 2029 on achieving those targets. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, we Councillor Michelle.
Thank you. And well, one thing it struck me as being missing, there's no mention about sort of whistleblowing and things like that, and I think that should be, because it's really quite important that people know the system and that they will be treated fairly, because in other organisations I know it's not always the case.
Okay, so the confidential reporting code, or the whistleblowing policy, is actually within the council's constitution, so that's something that's already in place and made use of. This people strategy is more about implementing new targets, new objectives for strengthening our approach to people.
Any other further questions? Anybody? No? Okay. Oh, sorry. Hi, Christian, sorry.
I suppose an obvious question would be, how would this be impacted by local government reorganisation?
So many of the objectives within here will actually help us through the journey for LGR. And some of them are quite standard across councils as well. So the employee engagement piece in particular and wellbeing will help us ensure that change management process through LGR for our employees. So it will actually complement it.
Right, lovely. One question from Councillor Brown.
Pardon. Yeah, thank you. I realise this is a high-level document, but under leadership development at paragraph 7, there's no reference at all to succession planning, and that is a bit of a concern to me, because a lot of our people have been in post for a long time. They have a wealth of historic knowledge. We need to have some method of making sure that that collective memory isn't lost when people go, especially with the age profile of the workforce, that if we come to a point where we have a retirement cliff coming up with a lot of people going in a short period of time, we lose that collective memory. And I just feel that we need to reference that there somewhere. Thank you.
So that is captured in the strategic workforce planning aim and targets. So there's various things that will contribute to that in terms of the council-wide skills audit will capture that information where there might be gaps, for example. But then the data insights that will be developed for strategic workforce planning will include things like, single points of failure and things like that, so that we can develop career pathways for those people that are here.
Okay.
And just to also add to that, if you look at section 8.5, it does reference that there's an ADR review process needed, which will also then help with succession planning as well. So 8.5 succession planning is referenced in the strategy, just to make that point clear. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, lovely. No further questions. So the recommendation is the report to be considered and noted, and it's to be recommended to the Cabinet and to be approved and adopted. Could we have someone second that, please? Self check. So is everybody in agreement for that one? Thank you. So that's fine. Sorry? Yeah, everything good? Yeah. Okay, item number 7. 11. I'm tired. It's been a long day. God, it's like a double shift. Right, item number 7 then. Okay. Nevin, oh God, I need a cup of coffee. Oh, actually, I've had too much coffee, so I must have believed. I probably need water now. Right, okay, item number 11. Right, I get it. Okay, so moving on to item number 11, page 69. So we have the recommendation is to have that. Sorry? Sorry? All right, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sorry, I won't take too much of the panel's time. Hopefully everybody's read the draft equality policy, which is up for review. We did it 3 years ago. Just give you a whistle-stop tour of the report. We've got the background of how we've got to where we are in terms of equality legislation. So that's all in section 4. Going into the actual policy in section 5, we've not made many significant changes to the policy. We've changed a few bits, sort of the first objective, and a few of the definitions within the actual policy that have been required to be changed over the last 3 years. As part of the development of the policy, we did put it out for consultation within the council with key officers, and details of the consultation queries and the responses are detailed in section 6. So happy to take any questions on this if anybody's got any.
Any questions? Anybody? No questions? So we will then now move on to the recommendation part of that. Sorry, I did slightly skip it. So it's to be recommended to Cabinet. Can I have somebody second that for me, please? Jack, that's all. Thank you very much for that. Everybody in agreement to move forward? Thank you for that. Okay, we have now item number 12, page 123. Before I move on to this, I would like to make a point to say that obviously in the media we've got an ongoing, it kind of come to a conclusion, the ongoing court case has been going on. I don't think that this chamber is a place to have any comments of anything or any references made to that in any way or form, because if it is, we will completely ignore you and move on. This is not the place, because it's quite sensitive, though it is very sensitive, and so I don't want any reference to that. Even that we can just carry forward then. So we'll go ahead with that then, please. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. The reason we brought this report is because it's been quite a bit of time since we've been to scrutiny in terms of safeguarding, and we felt it was important to bring you some information in terms of development and what's going on in the borough. Again, it's very much a whistle-stop tour of safeguarding, and we could go into a lot more detail than we have in the report, but this is sort of the main bits. Section 3 highlights the new Warwickshire safeguarding arrangements. So previously there was one body which was safeguarding Warwickshire. It's now split into 2. So we've got a safeguarding children's partnership and an adults board. So the report details that and how we fund them, and in amongst their other activities as well that they carry out. Going on to section 4. I'm going to take this into 2 bits in terms of children first and then adults afterwards. I think the thing to take from certainly the children's bit is we are the most active area in Warwickshire in terms of child safeguarding referrals. as it says there, we're quite significantly higher than the other areas. Unfortunately, when it comes to adults, we haven't got that data broke down in terms of over the county. Unfortunately, that wasn't available to us at the time that we put the report together. I still don't know if it's available now. But I think the thing that certainly I wanted to bring members' attention to is the sort of the 4.24, which is sort of the risk to sort of our more vulnerable members in the community, is source of risk known to the adult, which is again a very high percentage of a source of the risk. Type of abuse, again, there's some self-neglect which we see a lot of, certainly within our council service. And one of the saddest part is the risk to an adult, a vulnerable adult, is in their actually home. It's a high percentage. So just to bring members awareness, certainly from a safeguarding point of view. Going on to case reviews, again, this is a very similar story to actually referrals. We do have the most in Warwickshire. Been involved in a few over the last few years and involved in some currently. So again, again, I'm not going to go into too much detail, and that's just to raise awareness with members that things are happening, and when unfortunately tragedies do happen, there is then processes in place to review, what's gone on and what can be improved in terms of partnership work and things of that nature. Going on to section 4, we were actually audited in October last year. We've not had the results of that audit yet, but I think between us, and I'm sort of looking over at Matt here as well, we are pretty confident that we've come out of that review really well. And as you can see in one of the appendices, our action list isn't that high. There is some work to do. The only thing I would point is 5.3. I only had the posters yesterday, so you might not have noticed them going around, but they will be going up in the not too distant future, so apologies for that. I was hoping that they'd be up and around the building by the time of this meeting, which they obviously haven't. Final bit from me, Chair, is just to sort of say that we are delivering training internally just to raise safeguarding awareness. There is a session next to Wednesday, and the stats there reflect how many employees have actually been trained, and this has also been extended to training has also been delivered to elected members, and I would expect that to be carrying on in the foreseeable future. Happy to take any questions off anybody. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Anybody? Sue first.
It's not really a question, it's just an observation actually, but it's sort of got a bit of a question in it. At 4.1.2, we've got the referrals for 24-25, and I appreciate perhaps on other reports we would have had the year before 23-24, and obviously 25-26 isn't ready yet, but it would be nice to see a comparison between the years to see whether we're getting more referrals now than we were, especially as going into unitary, and if we just split into two, we're going to have to fund this. So it would be nice to see the comparison between them. That was all.
In terms of referrals, it can be kind of subjective in terms of that there's a lot to go into the mix with that, in terms of are we better identifying abuse, and are we more confident as not only an authority but as agencies and actually reporting that. There has been a big drive with the introduction of the Family Connect. There is more of an emphasis now on certainly agencies to I'm just trying to think of the phrase, to actually filter referrals so that they'd rather have 100 good referrals than 1,000 speculative referrals, if that makes sense. So that's where there's a lot of the onus on someone like myself to actually filter out the referrals and actually see what we can do as a council first before we make that contact with the Family Connect or indeed any other statutory agency that we refer to. So, but yeah, I take your point about the data, and hopefully we'll come back in 12 months and we'll be able to present a better picture.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. So just for some information, sorry if I've not made that very clear in the report. I'm just trying to find the page that it's on. So what I've done with our 4.1.1, they're the referrals that we've been involved in from a children's perspective, and the same with 4.2.1, they're the ones that we've been involved in. The data in the other is county-wide, so that can be from a number of source of referrals, so that's will be included in our figures, and that will be included from other agencies as well. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Malcolm made a very good point, really, and it's kind of out of our hands, really, but if there are changes to councils underway, it's interesting where all those responsibilities lie. But in regards to safeguarding, let's not forget, Chair, we all have a responsibility, every one of us, to report things if we see them, if we're outdoor knocking or we're engaging with the community. But where I've been concerned in the past is the length of time when you report things. I had one particular case a few years ago where on three separate occasions I reported safeguarding issues around vulnerable children in a particular property, and whenever I tried to follow it up, I just got the thing. I kind of understand it, I suppose. Oh, well, we can't tell you data protection. I don't really want to know the detail of it. I just want to know that something's progressing to be able to, to resolve that issue and safeguard those children. But that's just as an example, really, about how we all have that responsibility. And one of the other issues is because it's largely a county council responsibility for things, and I'm mainly talking about safeguarding children, really. They have the main bulk of the funding to deal with things like this, but do they pass any of that funding on to assist us in helping with this as well? I'll just finish off, Craig, and then maybe you come back on that. And my final concern is, more recently, particularly, we've had a number of planning applications for houses for change of use into children's homes, and I've been quite surprised at the level of animosity in the community towards these things, and some of the objections that people put forward are, to be honest, pretty disgusting. And my own personal opinion, because that's all I can give, is young children are much better to be in that community setting, in a family type setting, than in a large residential home. I've got a lot of experience of being in those homes, and I don't know how we educate people around the accusations they make about these things, but I guess I just needed to vent that bit, really, and I thought Craig might have an opinion on it, as well as the other things I've mentioned. But thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll take the last one first. In terms of input into residential homes, we have very little, but I know, and this is going to sound sort of like a corporate response, there is a large emphasis now in children's services that they will do everything to keep families together. So there will be a strong, it's high challenge, high support is what the children's services are. That's sort of their strapline now for dealing with families, and they will make every effort to keep families together. So in terms of children going into residential care, that will be ultimately a last resort for social services to do. So that there's that bit. In terms of the funding, no, we don't receive any funding from Warwickshire County Council in terms of discharging our safeguarding functions. I think the argument that would come back is that we have got under Section 11 of the Children's Act, we have responsibilities as a local authority to discharge them functions. So we don't get any additional funding as such for safeguarding activity. And just your first point, I would agree on this in terms of certainly when I make contact with adult social care, children's services, mental health, we don't need to know chapter and verse on that person's life. We don't need to know what actions they're taking. I think it's more important that we know actions being taken, and I would share that frustration that it unfortunately it does depend on who you talk to and who you get through to, because sometimes we do hit a brick wall and we are challenged, we are met with that GDPR argument when, like you said, we just want to know there's something happening.
Just make one final point. It's very quick. I just want to make one final comment because Craig mentioned about trying to keep families together, and that's quite right if it can be done. And we used to have a very good system. It was called Sure Start, I think, where people could go into families and sort of get into that, putting things right within that context. But all the funding was removed from it, and I'm not really aware of a replacement scheme of it. But I'm glad to hear Craig says that is the priority for the social services, etc.
Just to quickly come back on that, Chair, there is a facility known as Early Help, which is sort of designed to help families that need a bit of additional support on top of universal services that are accessible to them. So it's sort of usually they're led by schools, and there'll be early help practitioners in schools that will be there to provide that additional support, so that they don't go, so that there's not that deterioration in sort of family breakdown and that. So it's designed to prevent the worst happening, basically. Okay.
I'm not sure actually, Bill. I may be wrong, but I thought nationally they were bringing that back. I had heard they're bringing Sure, because that's quite important. Under a different name, because it was in the, I believe it was a Tony Blair, but they're bringing it back, so that's a plus that's a plus nationally. I know it's quite important. I've been involved in that myself a number of years ago. Do we have any other questions this afternoon?
Hi. So under section 6 for training, it states that the NBBC employees who may come into contact with children and adults with social care and support needs, they're required to undertake safeguarding training. With the rest of the employees who may not necessarily come into contact in like an appointment setting, is that an option for them to take the training, or is it an encouragement? Because obviously, let's say an employee from planning goes out for lunch in town and they see an incident, they may not know what to do. Is there an option for all employees to be trained?
That's a really good point. If I had my way, I'd train everybody, because I think safeguarding is really important. Practically and pragmatically, I think it's prudent to target our resources at those staff that are more likely to come into contact with children or indeed vulnerable adults as part of their day job. I think the important thing is, like I said, with the posters, if they have any concerns, they know where to go with them. We have got a well-established referral form now on our dash system, which is picked up by myself and Matt in my absence. So we have got a good referral system that if any employee has got any concerns, they know where to go. But in terms of training, yes, I totally agree that it would be nice to train everybody, but practically we have to target our resources at those that the greatest need, those that are likely to come into contact with safeguarding issues.
Is your training online then?
It isn't, and the reason I've kept it face to face is because I think it generates that discussion, and online training can be quite cold. It can be just click button. For me, it's more valuable that we have them discussions face to face. I could be here all night telling you stories of stuff that I've had disclosed to me in training courses, but it is good to stimulate them discussions between employees. And the other thing to remember as well is just going back to the councillor's point, there are some employees that won't be as exposed to safeguarding issues as others, so they might come into contact. I'm just using an example now. Somebody in environmental health might not have any contact with housing officers that you could probably expect. They contact me daily, basically, in terms of safeguarding concerns from various reasons. So they not only learn from the training, but they learn off each other as well. So yeah.
I believe in the hospital, it's all gone online training. It's mandatory, but it's gone online for all employees. But I do agree with the face-to-faces. I think it's definitely more better.
Sorry, Chair, just quickly, as it is getting closer to the 3-hour limit, I'd like to propose a motion to suspend standing orders to complete the business of the committee. Do we have a seconder?
So we're all in favour? Okay, that's lovely. Thank you for that. Shouldn't be too long now anyway. Do we have any further questions? Just
need to vote on the...
Oh, on the motion. So we'll have a vote. Everybody in favour? Reluctantly. Do we have any more questions on this item? We do. Sue?
Yeah, I was just going to say, so are you our designated lead then? Or is that anywhere in the building so people know who the designated lead is?
So yes, it is me. Matt covers for me when I'm on holiday, and yes, the posters will be going up very soon to sort of specify that. But there is a lot of we do try and promote that via our internal communication mechanisms as well. We do it on a sort of a periodic basis. We don't bombard everybody every week, but it's just to make sure that it just keeps topping up the awareness, basically.
Christian, did you have a question?
It was going to be the same question as Sue, basically. Are employees aware where they need to report to? And it sounds like it's at work in progress.
Thank you. The recommendation for this is to be the contents of the report to be considered and noted. Do we have a seconder for that, please, Jamie or Jack? All in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. That's fine. Yeah, we're okay with that. So item number 13, that's on page 132. That's a motion from the council on the 17th of September 25. Seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't really. Right, it was a motion that was raised regarding the MEF process. The recommendation is that so if we can everybody look at the report on that, and let me have a look. So who's to go with that? Who's recommend that? As yourself. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, there was a question asked on the 17th of September regarding the MEF performance, and I'm here today just to kind of give you an overview of where we are and what's changed. If you look at the recommendations 3.1, it gives you an overview of MEF performance. So in Q1, using the old process, the compliance was 40% against the SLA. In Q3, with the new process, it's now moved to 79% compliance against the SLA. So a significant increase in performance. And we are seeing an even greater compliance in the last few weeks. So what I'd like to do is come back at the end of Q4 and give you a further update to ensure that the MEF process is working correctly, and have a look at probably in a bit more detail in terms of the numbers. So just for background in case you aren't aware, so the old MEF process had 3 stages. So there'd be a submission stage, an investigation stage, and then depending on what the answer was, the case would be closed. The revised process now has multiple stages. So an officer can't close the case. It's down to you to close the case, and you can ask multiple questions if you're not clear about the answer or you want further clarity. That gives us just better transparency and accountability. So I have put some of the numbers in there in terms of the number of cases and the number of stages, but you can see that in Q3, 220 MEFs were submitted, so that's the whole case. However, because of the option now of asking multiple questions, multiple stages, there was 393 workflow stages, of which 311 were completed within the 2-day SLA. So every time you ask a question, it goes back to a 2-day SLA. I think that what this is showing is that I think two things. I think the system that we've now got, the new iteration of the system, is working much better for you and for us. I think it gives you greater clarity and transparency, and you can ask multiple questions. So sometimes the answers from the officers are not amazing, and they don't give you the response that you want or that you've asked for, and this new process gives you the opportunity to do that. So again, I'm not going to go through all of the text, but I've put some tables at the bottom of page 134, which show by service area the level of compliance. So again, you can have a look through that. So the challenge for me and for the assistant directors and directors is now to start to look at where the compliance isn't amazing and start to move those forward, because some areas within the council are achieving 100% compliance, which is amazing. I've also included a table which shows the number of cases that have been submitted. So you can see, I think Steve alluded to this earlier on, where the number of cases is significantly high. So housing, leisure and culture, waste management, planning are the kind of big hitters, council property. So that's where we get the most number of cases. I've also been asked by the chair to have a look at some training for you guys. So we have done training in the past, and we did it as part of the induction. And I think Peter from IT did a short video clip, but there was no audio to it. So it kind of showed you how to do it, but you had to kind of look at it and kind of understand what he's doing. So I have written a completely new training guide to go along with this report, and I propose to load the training guide onto the to the members page. So when you log on and on the portal on self-serve, and you go to the members page, there'll be a link for the training, so it'll be there permanently, so you can refer to it as and when. And also, when we make any changes or developments in the future, I'll update the training so it's always live and accurate. I am also offering any face-to-face training that anybody wants. So if after this meeting, I will send an invitation out for anybody that wants any face-to-face training if you're not sure about what to do or how to do it. And I think the other side of the coin now is that I'll also write a training pack for all of our colleagues that use the MEF system, so the complaint handlers, so that they've got a competent level of training as well, because I am getting some requests for training for the complaint handlers as well. So you'll have your training guide, they'll have the training guide. I'll come back at Q4 with an update, see how we're doing, and then we'll kind of see where that takes us. Yeah, anybody got any questions?
Thank you for getting that training guide turned around quite quick. We only discussed it 2 weeks ago, so I appreciate that. Do we have any questions? Anybody? No questions? Okay, the recommendation is, oh, I'm so tired, is, what's the recommendation? It's to be noted. Yeah, recommendation is to be noted. Do we have somebody second that? Thank you, Jack. Everybody in favour of that? Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item number 14, page 140, transformation strategy. So I'll let the presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you for waiting for so long.
Thank you, Chair. Evening all. The report I'm presenting tonight gives an overview of the approach taken, going to be taken by the Council in the production of the forthcoming transformation strategy. It also gives early sight of some of the content and themes coming out from staff engagement, because as much as there are a lot of key qualities to transformation in terms of success criteria, engagement is a really big tick for any transformation, and that will start with the vision and the transformation strategy. So it's important that the approach to the transformation strategy isn't singular in terms of myself in a darkened room telling the council how to transform. It's about, that's one element of a professional experience, but other elements include peer critique, LGA assessments, member input and staff input, which is what we're on the journey to now, and the draft strategy will be with SLT hopefully for the March meeting. So outlined in the report is some of the early content around communication skills engagement that we'd like to bring into the transformation strategy and some of that blueprint. But other than that, I'm very happy to take any questions on it.
Do we have any questions? Michelle?
I'm probably being really, really thick here, but transforming what to what? Because it just, I'm not in this never been in management field or whatever and things. It means nothing to me. It's just words that I don't understand what you're transforming to what.
Good, in a way, because that's the point in the engagement where we can then say, what does it mean to, in fact, I've sent out the invite for all members to come, and part of that pack is about what does it mean to you, because it doesn't matter what it means to me or Plymouth or Northampton Council or whatever. I mean, what does it mean to you? What rings true to you, and what are we doing? What would you like to see in it, and what are we going from A to B? So in brief, I like that you asked the question because it means that you're thinking about the output. And what we're transforming is any service, culture, financial bottom line, process to something that is better for our residents, more efficient, more effective.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. As somebody who's been in my job in the civil service for over 40 years, I've been through countless change management, transformation strategies, whether it's the Volvo system, the quest for quality, all of these things. Invariably, they were accompanied by a change of terminology. So one week, the work we had was stock. Next week, it was work in progress because we changed the terminology under a new strategy. The new terminology was eagerly adopted by the people who were putting it forward and the early adopters, but bitterly resented by the people who felt that they knew what they were doing the same thing, but now they didn't understand it because somebody had changed the language around it. So all I will say to this is, please, when we have the draft strategy, that we retain terminology that staff are familiar with and understand, because that's part of the way of getting their buy-in to it, is not to alienate people by taking something they already know what they're doing and changing all the language around it so they feel like they don't understand it anymore. Thank you.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, agreed. Yep.
I agree with that completely. Any other questions? Anybody? No? So this is to be authorised and noted, just for noting. Item number 14, recommendation. Or are they endorsed? Do we have to take a second on that? Yeah, second on that. Are we all happy with that going forward to have that endorsed? Thank you very much. Plan forward is for noting on page 144, item number 15. Has everybody Happy with that? Any questions on that one? Do we take a vote on that? Is it just for noting? That's fine. Okay. Everybody's happy with item numbers 15, 16. That's just for information noting. Everybody happy with that? Thank you. Any other items? Anybody? Any other questions? We're happy to close. It's been a long night. We're happy to close. Thank you very much for everybody's time. Appreciate it. I'm sorry I didn't have a break in between, but if anybody, wanted to disappear for a while, I would have understood. But it's been a good meeting, quite informative. Thank you. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you.